Welcome folks to this brand new course on Playwright with Java. We are going to take you through all the steps you need to become a professional Playwright developer to be able to write test automation smoothly and efficiently with Playwright and to understand why it is becoming so popular. So first, what we're going to do is look at what Playwright actually is and what makes it stand out from all the other automation tools on the market. We're going to compare Playwright with the most popular general purpose test automation tool, which is Selenium. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to set up your environment so that you can practice Playwright for yourself. So what exactly is Playwright? Playwright is an open source test automation framework that has been developed recently by Microsoft. It's designed to be a general purpose, modern, fast, reliable, end-to-end test automation framework that works across multiple browsers. Let's see what each of these mean in practice. The first point is that Playwright is open source. That means that it is free to use. You don't have to pay licensing fees. But more importantly, it's got a large community behind it so that it is not just being developed and supported by Microsoft, which is already a big player, but by a broader community. This ensures that the tool is constantly evolving and being updated and getting inputs from users around the world. Playwright is backed by Microsoft, which gives it obviously a really strong foundation. You've got a highly reliable team behind it who permanently work on the project to support it and update it. It means you've got a stable website with great documentation and lots of tutorials and resources there that you can look and find out more about Playwright. And it gives you that assurance that this tool is not going to disappear tomorrow. One of Playwright's big strengths is how versatile it is. It supports a heap of languages, JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, C#, Java. So you can integrate it with your current development process, which is really important if you're in a context where you would like to get developers as well as testers participating in your test automation effort. It also supports pretty much all the modern browsers, Chrome, Firefox, WebKit, which is the basis of Safari, in their normal desktop mode or in mobile mode as well. Playwright is designed to work well and reliably with modern web applications and real-world scenarios where we have things like network delays, dynamic content, asynchronous requests, and so forth. So that's why it has a number of features built in that save you a lot of time and effort and makes your tests a lot less flaky. For example, it supports auto waits and retries. If it can't find an element on the page, it will look for it again or keep waiting a little bit. That sort of stuff you have to configure on purpose, deliberately in Selenium, which is a bit of a pain, but in Playwright, it does it automatically, so it makes it a lot easier to work with. It also means your tests are a lot more stable than they would be otherwise. It also supports some really nice web-focused assertions. So you can make assertions about your web element and the state of your page in a very readable and friendly manner. And finally, it has a whole lot of tools that allow you to debug and troubleshoot your tests much more easily. Things like capturing execution, tracing your application, videos, screenshots, all of those aspects are built in, make it very easy to use and make the tool much easier to work with in general. The tools are really cool. There's code generation, which allows you to record a Playwright script in your browser and use that as a starting point. You can select locators on the page and use them directly in your tests. You can record a trace of your application as it runs and then step through it and see what it was actually doing. The tools are some of the things that make Playwright a really pleasant automation framework to work with, and we'll be diving into them in a lot of detail later on in the course. Now, before we dive into setting up your development environment to use Playwright for yourself, let's talk about the difference between Playwright and Selenium so that if anyone asks, hey, why are you using Playwright instead of Selenium, you can give some sensible answers. Both Playwright and Selenium support a range of modern browsers. Playwright supports Chrome, Firefox, WebKit. Selenium supports some of the older drivers as well, like Internet Explorer. So if you're using legacy browsers, then you may need to use Selenium. But if you're using anything modern, including Edge as well, then Playwright will certainly work well. And using Playwright has a number of advantages over Selenium in this area. It's a lot easier to configure. In fact, in most cases, there's nothing to configure at all. Playwright will automatically install the binaries that you need. With Selenium, it's a little bit more complicated because you need to have a binary driver to interact with whatever version of the browser you have on your machine. Traditionally, this needed to be done by hand. With the latest versions of Selenium, there is a way you can do this programmatically, but it is still a little bit more complicated than with Playwright, where it is just done out of the box. Playwright is naturally more stable than Selenium because it has automatic waits and retries when elements are missing. And this makes it much easier to handle asynchronous and modern single page applications than Selenium. Again, there are workarounds in Selenium. Tools like Serenity will do this for you as well. And you can configure default waits on your web elements or explicit waits, but it's more work and harder to do. Whereas once again, Playwright has this feature built in, so it makes it much easier to work with. Speed is obviously an important factor in your web tests, and Playwright has an advantage over Selenium here because basically there are less moving parts. And on typical tests, what we see is a speed improvement of say 20 to 30% over standard Selenium. Modern web applications can be hard to work with Selenium. Things like shadow DOMs are particularly tricky to interact with if you're using a WebDriver test. But with Playwright, they work automatically. They are built in out of the box. So now you should have an understanding of what Playwright is and why you might want to use it for your next automation framework. And in the next module, we will dive into setting up an environment so that you can write some Playwright scripts yourself.